As 2009 draws to a close, Square Enix embarks on another foray into the realm of Final Fantasy with the latest entry in the Crystal Chronicle series. The Crystal Bearers has had a shaky development history, but it's now finally hitting store shelves. The game sheds the traditional Final Fantasy mold for something more refreshing, but does the new combat system hold the experience back? Typically, a Final Fantasy title involves a cast of dozens of heroes and villains locked in combat over the fate of the world. The Crystal Bearers scales things back, focusing on the tale of Lael, a young mercenary who possesses an extraordinary power on account of being a crystal bearer. During a routine mission, he becomes entangled with a member of the supposedly extinct Yuke tribe. As Lael pursues the alleged fiend across the kingdom, he slowly begins to unravel a plot that's set to ruin the royal family, as well as ensure the annihilation of the Crystal Bearers. Rather than becoming as convoluted and melodramatic as the series is known to, the Crystal Bearers manages to keep the story at the forefront, without smothering you in it.
How dare you call me a criminal!
There are plenty of genuinely gripping, emotionally charged sequences, and for once, the game's star is down to earth, neither overly filled with angst or super gung-ho. Some spotty writing and sketchy voice acting does weaken the overall impact.
I told you I don't want an onion-made engine!
But the game has a good tale to tell that leaves you satisfied from beginning to end.
Hey, no fair!
Though the Crystal Chronicle series is known for its real-time combat blended with exploration and dungeon crawling, it's still been heavy on the RPG side of things. The Crystal Bearers cuts off most of the fat, with virtually no RPG elements. There's a stronger emphasis on exploration than ever before, with a giant, seamless world. It's more akin to a sandbox game with lots of different objectives to tackle at any given time or place, and the game actively encourages you to mess around with the environment. It's a refreshing change of pace. The majority of the action involves running around the world, engaging in scripted events or fighting battles. There's some light platforming, and you'll have to use Lael's special powers every now and then to get around, but it never gets too complicated. As for the combat sequences, you'll take on various monsters in an open area, though you only have so long to engage them. After enough time has passed, the enemies will vanish, and you'll need to wait for them to respawn. It can be a bother at times, especially if you've invested some effort into the encounter. While you won't need to worry about leveling up, there is a bit of inventory management or item collection to contend with. The way these elements figure into the experience, however, like forging new accessories or customizing the emblem on your jacket, isn't integral to completing the game. The collection elements are largely tied to completing optional tasks, like finding treasure, defeating monsters, or participating in one of the numerous minigames. You'll also eventually be able to replay some of the game's key sequences. All told, there's simply a ton of secondary tasks to engage in. The adventure is over almost as soon as it begins, clocking in at just under 10 hours, which is incredibly short by Square Enix's standards. It's good while it lasts, but we would have liked a bit more mileage. Playing as an all-powerful Crystal Bear seems like an amazing concept, but the game's combat system ultimately leaves something to be desired. It's great that the developers tried something unique, but different in this case doesn't mean better. Lael's special power as a Crystal Bear is the ability to use telekinesis, which allows you to lift and toss objects and enemies. You simply run around the environment looking for stuff to pick up and throw while dodging enemy attacks. The problem is, it doesn't work all that well, and during some of the more difficult battles, it can become very frustrating. The issue is that the system relies partially on the gesture-based actions from the Wii Remote. In a frantic battle, your hand is bound to move inadvertently, and the more often than not, this will result in you hurling an object when you didn't mean to. The issue is also compounded by the fact that the camera controls aren't the most intuitive, which makes it hard to throw stuff accurately. Outside of combat, the gesture inputs work well, especially during the minigames and scripted action sequences. Still, we had higher hopes for the combat, which aside from the technical issues, also lacks diversity and ultimately fails to live up to its potential. The Crystal Bears features some impressive 3D visuals, boasting a large overworld that's for the most part connected without any loading points or zone boundaries. The game's soundtrack is anything but the standard Final Fantasy fare. Some of the tunes sound out of place, but they really hit home during the game's stirring cutscenes. The game's voice work often misses the mark, though a few roles are decent enough.
What, you forgot your partner? I mean, your mentor's face? I taught you everything you know about the business.
There are a lot of unique concepts in the Crystal Bearers, but their flawed execution puts a damper on the experience. Combat aside, it's got a few redeeming qualities, namely a strong story and some genuinely fun sequences. If you're expecting the traditional Square Enix offering of magic, leveling, and gear management, you'll be put off by the radical departure. Otherwise, it's a more accessible experience that's suited to a broader audience.
Either way, if this is the work of a crystal bearer, there will be hell to pay.